Hi, I'm Peter, I'm 51 and I just want to live life to the fullest.
Hi, my name is Ben, I'm 45 and my aim is to be cancer free.
I'm Ian, I'm 56 and I'm going to fly my plane around Australia.
I was initially diagnosed on the 20th of August 2009 and I'd had a gastroscopy, and it was a follow-up procedure from an ulcer that I'd had, and I was just expecting it to be nothing, and then the surgeon who did the gastroscopy said, "So I've got some bad news," and I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "It's cancer." So that sort of really shocked me. As I said, I sort of had gone in just for a follow-up for what I thought was just a simple ulcer, to then being told it was cancer.
Yeah, well, I was having problems swallowing food for a while, and I went back to my doctor a few times and he tried a few different things and decided in the end that he needed to do a scope to check something wasn't quite right. And that was the start of a 4-week whirlwind where I had a lot of testing, but in Gippsland, and then I was referred to Peter Mac, and saw the surgeon at Peter Mac in early February 2011, and 3 weeks later I had a major operation where they basically took all most of my esophagus out and a fair bit of my stomach.
I was diagnosed in November 2009 and was rushed off to hospital because I had a bleeder, vomited up nearly 2 litres of blood at the GP, and was rushed off to hospital, and basically was in hospital for 4 days and was told that this is what I've got, GI cancer, and basically I was already shown a plan of what I was going to be doing. I was told that I was going to be doing chemotherapy, first 9 weeks of chemo, and then following after that doing surgery, and then possibly another round of 9 weeks of chemo.
It was really difficult to sort of comprehend what was going on. I was only 44. At the time we were about to get married in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, and my wife-to-be, she was 6 months pregnant. So it was pretty emotional. I thought it'd be a fairly simple thing to fix up, but equally I was terrified. Terrified of dying, terrified of leaving my children without a father, terrified to leave my wife without a husband.
It's like you hit a brick wall. In one way, your life is just going along and suddenly you have this fork in the road, and yeah, it was very daunting. The best thing I did was I had intentions of working right to my operation. I went to work, I lasted 2 hours, couldn't do it anymore. I went home, I walked for 3 weeks with my dog. And I think that had 2-pronged, it made me fitter for the operation, but it just got any anger that I had dissipated, and I was ready to face the operation and challenge ahead.
The emotions of being diagnosed was, one of the first things was, have I caused this? Have I done something over the course of my life to actually have created this? And that was a difficult one to really sort of comprehend, that it was just unfortunate. It wasn't because of anything that I'd done over my life, it wasn't my lifestyle, it was just, one of the things I have learned is that cancer doesn't discriminate.
I was scared. I knew I had to just get on with it, and because I knew that with what I was dealing with was really serious, and the type of cancer I had was incredibly aggressive, and was told that I had to physically and mentally get fit for this. And at the same time, myself and my wife had asked our oncologist about seeing a psychologist, and we dealt with a lady who deals only with cancer patients, and we still see her today, and she's an amazing woman, and that's helped me get my head around things a lot.
When I was diagnosed, to then sort of look at what treatment I would have. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't know anything about it. In my sort of history of cancer was sort of permanent. And it was only my children who they were really confident that it's just cancer and you can beat it. So I started looking at different options and spoke to my GP, and then I was offered an opportunity to go on a medical trial. So I looked at all the options that I had and spoke to and got a second opinion. I have a really good friend who's a doctor as well, and he sort of helped me with that choice, and also my wife and family.
With my first appointment with the surgeon at Peter Mac, he gave me a range of options, but also gave me his preferred option, which was at the time, which was surgery and then follow up with radiation or chemo if required. And that seemed to me to be the best. You know, he gave me that confidence as well, and he said that's, you know, you just that was I felt that was the best way to go. So that's what we did. Went through all the risks. You know, but he was also very reassuring. You know, in that with what they're doing these days, you know, there's still risks, but you know, he was very confident. Fortunately, I had my wife with me, and I had my son with me, who was studying to do medicine at the time. But so it was just good to have that support as well, just so that, and also you just get, you know, they are able to ask questions as well. But it was, yeah, it just rather than this whirlwind of information.
Myself and my wife did a lot of research on the internet as well, and we went and got advice from other oncologists as well about from when I was diagnosed the second time. But the advice that they gave us was, yeah, good. It was very good, and said that with what I was doing was the right thing to do.
I suppose on one aspect, the image that I was portraying to my family and friends on the exterior was that, yeah, I'm okay, but internally I wasn't. And that, I think I mentioned earlier about that sort of shift, or that perception of being a man and not showing your emotions, and sort of being in control of everything. And that was the thing I really learnt, that I couldn't control this. And to try to just control how I responded to that.
Got on Google and got scared, so turned it off. Because all I saw on Google was people that had been diagnosed with what I had and all the horror stories. So I stopped. I've actually decided, no, this is not the place to go.
My wife has been unbelievable. She's been literally the rock. She has made all the financial decisions. She's sourced things on the internet, chased everything until she's got the answers that she's wanted from other sources, from other oncologists that we've seen, and then come back and we've discussed it with our team as well. It's the best thing that two of us working together as a team. I've been mainly focused on work, doing treatment, and trying to get as much rest as I possibly can, and then I've let Tony do all the other stuff, the paperwork, the sourcing of information, if we've needed to source, trying to keep my diet and everything in check. Whenever we see the oncologist, we've always got a list of questions, and we've always done that from day one. Whenever we've seen advice from other oncologists or seen second opinions, we've always had a list of questions before we go.
I did have private health insurance, but it was a combination of private and public, because the trial was a public trial. So I had some aspects of it was private. I had my surgery in a private hospital, Cabrini, but then all my other treatment and the ongoing sort of treatment afterwards was all through public system.
The other thing that I did do before I had my operation was I wrote down 6 things that I was going to do that year. And they were, quite varied, but I felt that if I did them that year, and I did them all that year too, but it was, I'd be well on the road to recovery. And one of that was I have a pilot's licence, and I was determined to get back to fly a plane. And I knew that was going to be a challenge, but I did it.
Treatment I had was 9 weeks of chemotherapy, which was, I was on 24/7. And then after that, it was a 6-week break. Then I had surgery. I had a total gastrectomy. And then about 6 weeks after that, I went back on another 9 weeks of chemo. Insofar as how it felt, it was shocking. It was really, really tough. I was fortunate in the sense that I was fairly young and also fairly fit and healthy. So it's quite bizarre that they give you stuff to make you sick, to make you feel better.
I had a 12-hour operation at Peter Mac. They removed most of my esophagus, 40% of my stomach, checked my lymph nodes, checked my liver, checked everything, put my rearranged my stomach so it sits up here now.
In regards to preparing myself for treatment, that's a really interesting question. I thought in my own head that certain things would happen, but in reality it was far different. When I sort of took the choice of taking time off to sort of recover, it didn't prepare me at all. So I thought I could relax, if you like, and sort of do all these things. Part of the treatment that I had though was having what they call a PICC line. So I was on chemotherapy for 9 weeks initially, and a PICC line is where they put a line in just underneath your bicep, and it goes into your heart, and you're actually hooked up to a bottle of chemotherapy. And because of that, I couldn't do sort of much exercise. I couldn't lift my arm above my shoulder, so there was a lot of restriction. So the picture I had in my head about how it would be to what reality was quite different. It would have, for myself, I suppose, if I had have known all that prior, would have been a big difference in my sort of thought process.
When I was first diagnosed, I had 9 weeks of chemo. Then I went through surgery, which was about 4 weeks after. And then I was supposed to go through, after the surgery, I was supposed to go through another 9 weeks of chemo, but was told that I'd got everything and I didn't need the second round of chemo. And 6 years down the track, after being diagnosed the first time, I've been re-diagnosed again in numerous spots and have had to go through already probably, I've done a year already of chemo, and I've had in between I've had a 2-month break, and I've done 10 sessions of radiotherapy on one side, and now currently doing more chemo.
It was quite interesting how I felt I almost became selfish in that regard, and in a sense it was all about me, where looking back at it, it was also about her and the children, you know, and my family and loved ones, because they all get impacted by this as well. Now I know now that there's a lot of support through the Cancer Council, and there's a lot of organisations that can help.
My cancer psychologist helped us to deal with, or showed us a plan on how to deal with asking the right questions to ask oncologists, GPs. She also helped us put in strategies in place on how to deal with difficult family, people giving the wrong advice, because you will get a lot of that, and we got our fair share. And also she helped us out immensely with just general life, on just being on how to deal with everything.
And I was really fortunate that we were working together as a team. She was extremely supportive. And I know when we'd go for different treatments and things, prior to going, we would sit down and work out, okay, what things do we want to cover? And she would write them down. So then when we were seeing the doctor, we would talk about different things. Quite often there'd be things I'd forget, and she would actually raise them and we'd talk about them then.
I'm currently still working full time, and the people that I work for are fantastic, and started off working a few hours a day and increasing that over the period of a year till I got back to full-time work. Where I am now, I work full-time bar when I do my treatment.
At the completion of my treatment, it was actually really strange. So going from a really structured format, in a sense of knowing where you had to be, you had these appointments, you got these tests, and even though it was intrusive, but it was also, you knew that they really cared about you and wanted to make sure you're okay. To all of a sudden having nothing was very difficult to sort of, I suppose, adjust to. For me, some of the things that sort of helped keep me going, if you like, was not giving up hope. Coming to the understanding that most of these things were out of my control. And it's a really interesting thing because I know, as for myself, I sort of went to that deepest, darkest point of the most worst thing that could ever happen. And I think that's just natural. But what I had to sort of try to focus on was the things that I could control. And that was really listening to the advice of the doctors and the sort of experts in the field, following the best treatment that they sort of thought would help me. Really savouring the moments with my children.
So I did all this walking beforehand. After the operation, if I could walk 20 yards, that was great, and it just you slowly built on it. But that was a way of, I think, in my own mind, I felt that I could feel if I was getting, it was a way that I could sort of benchmark that I was getting better, because if I could only walk 50 metres this week and I could walk 70 metres next week, I must be getting better.
You will forget a lot of things, and as you're going through your journey, whether it being surgery first or chemo first, when you have a problem, it's easier to jot it down, and that way it's already in place. And when you go to see your surgeon, oncologist, whoever you're seeing, the answers of what you've been going through is there and written down, and you don't need to remember, it's already there for you. Makes life a lot easier. It's the same with when you come to meeting a professional, you have questions, do the same thing as well. It takes 5 minutes to write down your problems, and just a lot easier to remember everything.
I still can get stressed from time to time and things like that, but I tend to, I'll go back up. I don't think that I'm the only person that can do anything anymore. I take time out. I live for today. And don't sweat the small. There's a lot of things in life that you think are really important, and they're not really that important at all. So it's. I think my priorities my whole priorities have changed. I do a lot more travel, or I might have a busy day, busy week at work, and come Friday, might have an early day this week, come back refreshed next week, rather than trying to plough on.